Hello, everyone. Welcome to SBIFF Film Talk. We're here for another installment. Today, we are talking about the film Marsha, and we're joined by Rowen and Aidan Kahn, filmmaker and star. So yeah, tell us about just the beginnings of this idea and how you guys got started with the concept. Please tell me there's not too much authenticity to this since you are brothers.
Yes.
And you are using your real names, so tell us about that.
Totally. I mean, it started off, I wrote a little, what I was trying to sort of make it into a one act. And then, well, really, Aidan and I think when I was, late teens or whatever, we started realizing that we could put away this sibling rivalry that we had and actually help each other and work together. And this was sort of the first time that we really put that into motion. And I think it really worked.
I never put it away. No, I think if we had even close to the kind of relationship that our characters have, that we couldn't have made the movie. Or well, there's that among other things. Yeah. It's always been, we were looking for opportunities to work together, and we found a great one. Really fun and cathartic too, obviously.
That's great. Yeah, it's, I love talking about comedic films because I think comedy is so difficult to do on film. I don't think this is just my opinion. I think it's a reality we can accept. It's very difficult to do in this film medium comparative to live. Comedy to me is such a natural live genre, and without that energy of a live audience, it's really difficult to get all those comedic elements in there. And I think you have so many that work well in this. And also, I mean, we'll go through them, I guess, one by one, because I could probably just take up the whole time talking about it myself. But one thing, the runtime, it's kind of a long short for a comedic short, and it has this build to it, which initially when you start the film, you don't necessarily know that you're watching a comedy because it's kind of has that film within a film element. So can you take us through some of that that process?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when I got into the editing room in this, my first thought was like, what can I cut? Because this is too long. And I mean, I wrote a 20-page script, so I was definitely ready for it to be a long film. But by the time I was really done, it was already, it was 17 minutes still. And I was like, how do I get this shorter? Because as you're saying, I think comedies traditionally are like set up, punchline. But this didn't feel like that. It felt like the entire 16 minutes is a setup. And I got self-conscious about it, especially recently when we're kind of submitting to these other things. They're like, we don't want one punchline shorts. And I got self-conscious about that, but I was like, really, this isn't a one punchline short. There are a lot of little things in it. But I always think about this quote, I think it was David O. Seltzer or something, where he says he doesn't write comedy. He only writes drama, and then it's the actors, it's the situations that bring the comedy out. And it's kind of like where you cut, how long do you let a scene play out before you cut? But as you know, this is just one scene. So it's strange. And I think what worked for it and what works in my eyes is that it's not, as you said, it's not just a traditional comedy where we're just trying to tell a joke every other second. The situation becomes funnier as we go on. And it becomes darker. I mean, it simultaneously becomes more of a comedy and more of a drama. Which I think that's kind of a fun way to do it.
Yeah, I think totally. It was harder. If we wanted to make it easier for ourselves, we probably could have done something less funny. Was it dying? They say dying.
Yes. What is this?
Dying is easy. Comedy is hard. And as somebody who's been killed on television several times, I can tell you that's absolutely true.
Yeah. I love that quote though. Dying is easy and comedy is hard. Because absolutely.
Yeah, totally. So what was your collaboration on this before? Was it Rowen, did you write the whole thing and then present it, or was there what was the collaboration?
Well, we had been thinking about making something together for a little while. We had thrown around a couple ideas. We had a couple sort of runners up. I just wrote this 1 week basically, and it was not at all what the movie ended up being, of course, you know, as most like blueprints, first drafts are. And then I brought it to Aidan, and Aidan had the wherewithal and the knowledge to bring it to somebody, you know, our writing partner, his writing partner, Matt Elisafan, who was just incredible, and he unlocked all this deeper. Can I swear on here? No, deeper crap.
Actually, we were hanging out and talking about the script, the three of us, and Rowan and I started bickering about some you know, inane thing, and Matt was like, that's what you got to do. That's what the story's about.
Right.
So you know, originally it was, you know, they were too cooperative with
Yeah.
one another. It wasn't dramatic enough, so we had to make it darker.
Yeah, I think the story really started because what I was interested in was like, oh, this actor who's fallen from grace, he's looking for resurrection, and that was the story to me. It was like, I just want to capture this guy at this moment, but then adding in these other layers, it really made it. I mean, it wouldn't have been the same movie.
Yeah, it's fun how there's kind of that transition where you know, it starts out, and we do sort of, I think the audience does sort of accept the premise of, it's like, oh, the brother is taking this job for his younger brother, helping him out, you know, and then as it unfolds, it's like, oh, okay, I see, it's younger brother who's actually like orchestrated this whole thing. Yeah, that transition is so fun. And also, you know, I think it's your details in there, like when the jewel comes out. That just, I don't know why, just that adds a certain layer of realism. And I'm curious where some of those came from, where if it was something, I don't know.
That
It's
was
like
a lot of
Aidan.
Aidan on set, you know, just, I mean, we were playing. I mean, I think that was the greatest part about this script, was that it was so open. You know, we were just in one place, and like everything that was going to happen was going to happen. We had 2 days, we had 16 hours basically total to shoot this thing. And we knew we needed to leave some room for those kinds of things. And Aidan's particularly good at just like, you know, going off, finding the little shit, you know, it worked really well.
We've been talking, I think, like so many people, and a lot of people were trying to make shorts. What's a single location project that we can do? And I don't think I had in mind being stuck in a literal single location for 2 days, but I mean, that allowed us to play around and to do all this stuff, you know, and figure stuff out, right? Whereas, you know, I've done so many, you know, low budget, you know, projects, shorts or music videos or whatever, where you're running around trying to just get all your shots, you know, time to play, or it's just I would just recommend it so much to people who are thinking about what kinds of projects to pursue, you know, in terms of short films. Like, you keep it as limited as possible, because you can endlessly mine material in a tiny space.
So I mean, even thinking about like thinking about the sense of like the one location, you know, they automatically sort of maybe feel like plays, because plays are you know, usually set in that, you know, you watch the action transpire. But with this, like, I was thinking about that movie Carnage, or Gods of Carnage, or whatever that was called. What? Which one?
Yeah, God of Carnage.
Yeah, Carnage. You know, and the fact that they were in one apartment the entire time. This is a feature length, so it was like really, you know, they were required to find the little tiny things, the little objects in that room. And yeah, as Aidan's saying, when you're working on these other projects, you have a location, you have that location for what, 6 hours or 8 hours that day, and like you got to get in there and get out, and you have to have everything planned. Whereas if you're just going to be there and you know you're going to be there, you can, yeah, you have that time and that space to explore. And I think that was so invaluable to us.
We had the benefit of working with all this great crew of people that we've known for a long time, and is, you know, very lucky, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're saying that. To me, it comes to mind like, wow, it looks like you guys really set yourselves up. I mean, it seems like you set yourselves up to really do what you do best as actors. You know, like that's an ideal situation for actors, right? Is where you're in the scene, you're not worrying about the running around. You know, what you're describing to me is like, okay, that's a pain in the ass. That takes away from what you're there to do as an actor. But, you know, whether consciously or not, it seems like you guys kind of created that environment where you eliminated a lot of what gets in the way of the performance and the Yeah, the
Yeah, I'm
character
glad you
thing.
said that. That's so, and I guess we knew that, but it wasn't as conscious. Because yeah, if we were casting other people, if we weren't going to be in it, I probably would have made different decisions. But I think what I knew I wanted, and I think what Aidan and I knew we wanted, was to set the cameras up and then just go.
We
Leave us
filmed
to,
long takes too, because it's full coverage on. I think we had two cameras, two angles,
yeah,
and
yeah.
basically, so we did long stretches of the short.
And I don't think anybody knew. They were like, "How long is this take gonna be? Like, are we just doing the whole movie right now?" Like, we just started, and we just had to pick arbitrarily, like little moments to cut. I mean, yeah, we were just running.
But I like the cut. So I mean, it's fun because those two vantage points, from down within the hole, and then you have the variation of you guys are in close up talking to each other, but then there's that further back shot where it's looking kind of down at you, Aidan, in the hole. And like that shot when it does that is so funny.
I'm
So
so glad you agree. That's exactly the image that I had on my brain. I was like, how do I make it seem like this kid is just not on the top of his game? Literally rock bottom. Like, where can I put him at rock bottom? Yeah.
You're stuck in a hole.
Yeah.
It reminded me of my cat, like in his box about to go to the vet, so just something about your position. I think your hands were up and just the look on your face was like.
That's good.
That's exactly how I felt. I don't know why I thought of cat and a cat carrier.
Yeah.
That's how I feel a lot of the time, honestly. Somebody just taking it.
Maybe that's your inspiration for some of these characters that and I said to Rowen too when we were emailing, I saw you in Upload earlier this year too, which was so fun and really funny seeing you as a having seen you in Marsha and then seeing that character.
Right.
Probably, I mean, they're not terribly different, right? I mean, they're kind of
similar.
like, yeah.
I think that was such a funny part too, and like something that Aidan and I definitely talked about before this. About are we really going to use our names? How much of these people are going to be actually us? That kind of thing. Because when we're making a short, we're not just obviously making it to talk to people like you and to be part of festivals like this. We're also making it to like work more. Like it's as a an investment. We want to work more, and to do something that is us was definitely not like the first instinct, I don't think, right? To say like, here we go, let's put out something where we're playing ourselves, and because that's something that's going to help us get more work. Like I don't know how it worked, but then oddly, I think Aidan tapped into something so nice in Marsha that led off to like a lot of other work for him in a similar vein.
Yeah, why are those kind of characters so fun to play? Like if you can play them well, they're just so fun. And for audiences, they're the least, I mean, they're like the detestable characters, but they're funny to, I don't know, there's something so like we hate that person in real life, but to play them is so much fun. Right?
I've never not wanted to be the bad guy. I'd rather be the bad guy 10 days out of 10. Black hat, that's me. Like give me that every time. I think I'm a pretty nice guy, but I would rather be like total I forget, can we swear? No. Jerk. Total jerk. Like the guy on Upload, then yeah, it's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
There's more to mind there. And Rowan, you kind of got, I mean, you had your own version, your own shadow character come out. So I think you were both getting to kind of play up the, maybe that's where your catharsis is this was who you wanted to be.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, something else, going back to the single location, I think another kind of fun way you guys were able to not make it feel like such a single location short film is the film within a film aspect. There's definitely a different look to the film that, you know, is within the film. There's that music that comes in, which gets funnier each time it revs up. I mean, of course, the first time we think this is the film we're about to watch. And then as it comes in, it's kind of its own cue. So can you talk a bit about that, about making the film within the film and kind of establishing that separate look from the real world of the film?
Absolutely. Well, I think part of the funny aspect, you know, because I think every comedy maybe should be funny to the person writing it. And I think what was funny to me really was that this film that we were going to be making within the film was going to be completely enigmatic. You had no idea what was going on in this other film. Like, I didn't want to, you know, and I think there's even a line in it where Aidan says, you know, okay, so how did he get in here? You know, he was talking to Mark, he was camping, and I was like, no, it doesn't matter, right? And like, I wanted to keep that enigmatic. So we have this film that feels so epic in scope. Like the music, you know, it's almost like Game of Thrones, and it's wind in the background, and Aidan, you know, and yet we just never find out what he's really.
And the scorpion, there's a nice shot of a scorpion creep. Was that actually in there? Or did you, what, tell us about the scorpion, the actual scorpion.
We got Mike's Critters. Great guy, great service. Mike came out with some critters in Vancouver where we shot, and Rowen was handling these scorpions and stuff. I wanted absolutely no part of it. That is based on reality. I'm no interest in.
I don't think Aidan has it in his contracts, as he says in the script, but he would if he could. No scorpions. No, yeah, it was a totally different day. So it was.
If it gets me work, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, the Scorpion King. What if you get offered the Scorpion King reboot?
Bring it on. I'll find some way through it.
But that was Aidan, going back to the music a little bit. Aidan was on violin there. I was playing the piano. And there was quite a bit of conversation about, you know, how to score this thing, right? I mean, because we have so much, because my initial thought was like, okay, it's only going to be music during the actual film within a film, and then everything else is just going to be silent. And I think a lot of people were like, I don't know about that. You know, no score to your movie, basically. But I think, as you're saying, I think the comedy, it helps the comedy along. Because it takes you back. I mean, it's almost like resetting up the joke every time it plays. And I like the, you know, like just like any good comedy, right? The repetitive nature of certain things, that's where the comedy comes from. Right. So I think that was sort of what was going for us.
I think too, maybe it's, you know, now that you bring it up and I'm thinking about it, I think it might be, we're introduced to this short, you know, to that dramatic scene. And so, you know, our inclination there is, Aidan, you're the main character and you're in this hole. And so we're like, oh, this poor guy as an audience. But then once we find out about the actor and why he's there, that changes our perception of you. And so when that music comes in.
Yeah, it's a different vibe every time. You don't feel quite as sorry for my character. There's a bit of a roller coaster of sympathy, I think, in this.
Yeah.
I had never really thought about it that way. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's incredible too, that you guys actually scored that yourself. I was gonna ask, you know, about where that came from, because it's really good. Nice. So you're that you have, you know, those chops as well, the music background as well.
That's where Aidan and I started. Aidan did classical violin for years. I did classical piano for not nearly as long, but you know, and that's, I think we go back to that every chance we get.
Yeah, we've done a lot of, I think for a lot of film stuff we've done, for other people's stuff, we've always been, music was the first thing for sure for us.
And I think, you know, not to like tie it in or be too cliche about it, but you know, there is a very musical nature to comedy, like at its heart, and so I think that helped Aidan and I along. And it, I don't know, it's definitely was my way into film too. I mean, you can really not look at something, and if you just hear the lines and if you hear the music that's going on, I mean, it makes things make sense a little bit more. And it was so nice being able to have an idea for the composition before we were even shooting, because then while I was watching these takes, I was hearing that in my head and knowing kind of the vibe, the mood that was going to be created. And yeah, as you said, like just helping the comedy along. I think it really helped.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so interesting. Yeah, they're both about timing. Though,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds really maybe kind of hackneyed and pretentious artist, but I mean, literally, these things are about timing. Comedy works that way. That's how our brain processes it, and you know, so that's really interesting that for you, the process was very tied to the music.
Absolutely. Well, and even the movie that I did with Aidan after that, this other short film, I mean, I found myself, yeah, like directing it. I wasn't acting in that one. And even directing it, like I found myself closing my eyes at some points just during scenes, because if it sounds right, it probably looked right too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be proven wrong when
You can watch the movie.
start seeing that.
Watch the movie sometime. Keep your eyes open. Just check it out. Like, you realize
Even better.
close your
Even
eyes.
better performance.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so then was there anything else kind of technically that you can share with us about creating the look of that movie within the movie too? Because it almost seemed like maybe there was a different color tone to, you know, there were visual effects to it as well that kind of signaled that break between those two worlds. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Rowen spent a huge amount of time building that the whole.
Oh yeah, you
know,
built that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had. I mean, we had some great help getting this outer structure built, but it's all Rowan's sort of design, and then he's putting the paper mache rocks together and all kinds of things, and it ended up looking pretty incredible. I remember like a couple of days before we're about to shoot, and Rowan's just covered in paper mache, and it's like, you know, we gotta rehearse this.
Like, it's gonna be great. It's gonna look great.
Yeah, no, a huge amount of work went into that.
Yeah, I that was definitely something that I wanted to focus on too. I mean, just like you were saying earlier, how do we make this character look just like at the bottom of the barrel? And yeah, that was part of it. It was just like sucking him in, making him solitary, you know. And then, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, like with the camera angles and just creating it so that it would just felt there was nothing else happening. It was just these two people. You know, occasionally we cut to the wide, but really, like, that's the look that I wanted, was just like any actor or director would know, like when you really get into it, like the director comes over and he's like kind of whispering to you. I mean, like I wanted that intimacy, like that closeness. And then, yeah, as you're saying, like when we go into the real movie, yeah, you want it to feel like the world is changing, but then of course we cut right out and we're still right where we were. And that, I guess that was just like kind of talking about like the movie magic of it all, like how one place can seem like two different worlds. You know?
Yeah, that was fun. Oh no, I was listening and nodding, and now I'm like, what do I say next? I forgot. I've used up my notes pretty much.
It's all good. It's all good.
I was gonna say that the direct, it's a rare thing to see, because there are the director actor moment, which is so sort of just here. There's so many weird little things, that the line reading thing. I mean, these are all real things that happen. You know, that it's such an inside joke. You know, so I hope that we kind of gave people insight to what that can be like sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you actually do a commercial for Fincher?
I don't think David Fincher's ever done a commercial. I would be very surprised.
No, he did.
Really?
He came from I forget, but his background was actually randomly. I know that. Yeah. So he has done commercials.
That was a guess.
Yeah,
that was a good guess.
Yes.
Yeah, David Fincher, Zack Snyder, and Michael Bay, I think, all kind of came from the same company early in their career, or random film knowledge. I know. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
Lots of them have. I guess he probably he hasn't directed a commercial probably in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, I'm curious what you know, some of those in jokes that, like, I am kind of curious about the origin of some of those, like what you did bring in, like if there's a funny kind of backstory to some of those moments that you can share with us.
I mean, the line reading thing was definitely one of the main points of like where we're like, this is very real, because I mean, theater and film alike, whatever you're working on, you will get these kinds of people, directors, whether they're really inexperienced or whether they have a shit ton of experience, they're going to come in and tell you something that is just not what a director should tell an actor, right? Including how to say a line, you know, and it's, but I think it just gets at the, yeah, the greater thing of just, yeah, of the ridiculous things that people say when they're in these positions of power. I mean, it's just outrageous.
Well, there's just also just a way that there's a language that you're supposed to speak, right? And Rowan and I, we're in different cities, but through the pandemic, he's been helping me over the phone. We've been helping each other with auditions, and we literally just, I don't know, like 45 minutes ago, wrapped up one of mine. And so we're constantly having that thing too, trying to give each other notes in a way that's not going to be detrimental to the performance overall. It's a real.
And oddly, it's become easier and harder to do since we've done Marsha, because I think we're both so much more aware of like giving each other line reads.
yeah, front of mind for sure.
Yeah. What were the other inside jokes? I mean, also just putting an actor in uncomfortable situations. I mean, even if it's not your brother, just saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get some water in here. Let's just cover him with water. Let's just throw some dirt on him." Yeah. You know, I think people are just treated, you know, like they're, yeah, like just...
people would be shocked to know how uncomfortable it can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet. You know, we hear stories of old Hollywood. We hear about all the terrible things that were done to like Judy Garland, you know, throughout her life as an actor. But I still don't, yeah, it's probably not on a lot of people's consciousness, like what it is of being an actor at times is you're kind of a prop for the movie.
Totally a prop. Completely a prop.
Especially if you're like Rowan and me, sort of like a serial, you know, guest star supporting. You're there, and we're gonna do whatever we please with you.
Yeah.
And whatever we'll serve, and we're just like, yep, great. So I'm glad to be here.
Right, and actually, I think that was kind of a cathartic thing for this movie, was that it was kind of like it was almost wish fulfillment. It was like, if I were on set, or if Aidan were on set, and we were told something ridiculous, then he can actually say, wait, that's ridiculous. As opposed to the reality where he doesn't have his brother to say, no, that's stupid, say something else. We have to say, yep, yes, sir, and, you know, yes, and what else, you know. Whereas in this situation, Aidan could be the actor who was speaking his mind. And I think that's kind of freeing and oddly freeing, you know, in a fun way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I love how this project, how something like this, that it, you know, a comedic short film, you know, even in this realm of comedy, there's so much that you guys can personally kind of, you know, as you said, like you can have this personal catharsis and work through these things, but not in this heavy way that we're used to hearing about filmmakers or artists doing, you know, right, like killing themselves for a role, or, you know, just going to a dark place and then having to release this pain. It's like it sounds like you did have a lot of these kind of releases and catharsis, but in such a fun way, you know, and such a, like, the end product is so, I'm trying to think of a comparable film, you know, but you know what I mean, like those autobiographical, like heavy, you know,
real catharsis,
like Honey Boy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the real catharsis for me, and maybe Aidan feels the same way, was being able to play the lead in something. That was really the nice thing, was that, oh shit, I get to have more than 2 minutes of screen time. That's pretty cathartic. Oh, I get to show what I've actually been working on the last however long, you know. That's pretty nice.
Well, I think, but there's also, you know, it's like doing something that's in our language, you know, and working with a sibling, if you're close with your sibling, is kind of like working with an extension of yourself. You just, you can, we know, we just know I know what Rowan's saying halfway through his sentence, you know, I just know, right? So that was great. I think
talking.
Yeah, like, okay, shut up. Yeah, no, we you just stop drilling, you truck oil. You know, and I think we've written so many things that we've never produced, or that's sort of like we're still figuring out. We've always tried to do stuff but this is I think our language we figured out was sort of this dark comedy thing, you
Yeah.
know. I think it's sort of reflective of the way we see the world. We were brought up in, I think, that kind of thinking.
Well,
I'll
right, and
I
having
hesitate to say more, you know, I'll wait for my psychiatry appointment. But that was sort of, it feels right. And I have a hard time now after this, because that felt so natural,
Mm.
writing other things.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think that was also the cathartic thing about it. Sorry, I'm just, you know, beating that word, but that we were able to say, we were able to tell this story that it wasn't just one thing, you know, whereas so often I'm given roles or stories that just don't have that subtextual layer, the layer that makes you actually, I don't know, care about.
Interested. Yeah. Makes it
Right?
interesting work to
Yeah.
you rather than just
Rather
show
than
up.
just like, here, tell this joke, that's funny, keep move on. You know, it's like, no, there's something underneath there, and it wasn't like you're saying, it was comedy, but it was deeper than that, you know.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell that kind of story was cathartic, even if it didn't release some kind of inner pent up rage that I had, which I don't have toward Aidan. You know, even though it didn't release that, it allowed me to live in a role that had both of those things, that enjoyed what he was doing, but also, you know, had this messed up undercurrent of what was going on. I mean, it's so satisfying to play somebody like that. And I was just so glad that Aidan and I were able to create something where we could do that.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked. It's great.
It
So can you tell us then? I always like to ask everyone what their what kind of the wisdom they gleaned from this working on this project that you would pass on. Like if you were to, you know, maybe give a contribution to a textbook on how to make a short film or go about this project. You know, what's kind of the good advice or the wisdom you gleaned from this whole process?
Go ahead, Aidan.
Work, find good partners, limit your locations, you know, manage your, you know, you can always do ambitious things, but thinking about scope beforehand, so that once you're in it, you can sort of get into the creative parts of it that aren't, let me figure out how we're going to possibly fit all this into one day. That kind of stuff, I think, can be, I mean, those parameters can sometimes help, and those constraints can make things work. But I think for me, I'm so glad that we sort of bit off what we could chew, and like left it to let's make it about the writing, and about the acting, and about the craft of it, rather than, you know, run and gun. I gotta film something out of this, you know, car window at high speed, and, you know, whatever, you know.
Well, and I think, like Aidan was talking about earlier too, it was such a testament. This movie was such a testament to the just being a kind individual in the industry, because believe it or not, there are a lot of not kind people out there, and our kindness allowed us to have an incredibly good crew that was really gung-ho and willing to help. I mean, if you're not a good dude, I mean, you're not going to have a crew next time you want to film something. So I think that was really
volunteer on other people's short. First of all, I mean, if we hadn't worked on set, like I was a camera assistant, and, you know, Rowen, I've worked in most departments on film sets. Those relationships are there, and that's kind of what this business, I think really any creative business in a lot of ways, is about. You have to develop relationships, not just for like schmoozing purposes, but because you rely on each other. It's a community for a reason, you know. And I put in my time on their projects, and then you know, you get the call, you better show up. You know, you can't, I can't tell you how many people I know who, you know, they bail on everybody's project, and eventually they don't have crews for their stuff, and they wonder, oh, why? Well, because you're not reliable. Reciprocity,
right?
You know? Yeah.
And then the other piece of advice that I would say is that if you can, I mean, choose something that, if not a one location, choose something that's like gonna actually bring out what a short film is meant to bring out, which is not, don't exhibit that you can film a fucking chase scene. Don't exhibit that you can film a really gruesome murder or something. That stuff is something you can explore, I think, later on a bigger budget. When you don't have that, start off small, do something that is going to be dramatically appealing. And oftentimes, I mean, if you look at any like short stories like Thomas Pynchon, I was reading a lot of Thomas Pynchon, or plays, any myriad plays, what they do with one place is remarkable. And I think that's what we were trying to prove and trying to exhibit in this.
Yeah, that's great advice. I can second that as someone who watches a lot of short films. Do what you do well.
Yeah.
Don't set yourself up for this impossible task. Just do it simple. Like, I'm not the filmmaker, but I've seen a lot, and I think that is probably really, really good advice, especially for a narrative short film where you're making your own story. It's not a documentary where you're going out. It's your own construction. Work with the tools that will actually allow you to construct it well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hijacked your advice
No,
portion, but
you know better than anybody. I mean, you've watched so many of these things, I bet. So
yeah.
well, thank you.
And it's advice that we just stolen from other people. I mean, that was probably advice that I heard early on, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do that. And I think, so I'm just furthering that advice.
Yeah.
Whoever gave it to me first.
Well, that's great. I mean, I hope someone hears it that, it resonates, because like, I think, sometimes those little obvious epiphanies are sometimes what really inspire people. It's just, you have to be listening at the right moment. You have to receive that information. I think that is such a key one, of just do what you can do well, keep it simple.
Right.
And
so true.
Yeah.
So true.
You don't
Awesome.
need, Alexas or, or Reds or all that stuff. I mean, figure out how to light something, get a camera that works. Maybe it's a new iPhone, whatever it is, and figure out how to tell the story, in a way that's compelling, right? Rowan and I just shot this short with our nephews. Actually, this is months ago now, but we're hanging out with them sort of, and we looked at it afterwards and like, this actually looks great. We shot it on an iPhone, looks and sounds pretty good. Like and we didn't put any, I mean, if we were deliberate about it, it was like, this is something we could have submitted places, like next food for thought next time, honestly.
Definitely.
Rental
save you some money.
Yeah, but less is more.
So where can we see what's next for Marsha, and what's next for you guys? What are you guys working on, or what do you have coming out that you can kind of shout out? Yeah.
Well, I got this new one coming out that I directed. It's called Innocent Butler. Aidan's in it. I've shot it up in Tahoe. Ron Perlman is in it. He's great.
Awesome.
It's a cool little one. It's going to festivals right now. We'll see where it goes, and hopefully it'll come out soon. But we've also got Marsha coming out online within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Cool.
We'll give, we'll start doing our little publicity rollout in anticipation of that. And then, sorry?
Are we going to provide the screener?
Oh yeah, we already did, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
So people watching this can.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Yes, thanks for that.
Good.
But then Aidan and I both have, we've been cooking up a lot of things for a while. Aidan just signed with this great manager, Untitled, and it's big things going, big things coming. Even with the current situation in the world, film remarkably is still being made. I'm in Vancouver making things right now. I was just on set of a Lifetime movie. I got hired for a Hallmark movie. We're doing it, taking what we can get.
Yeah, awesome.
I won't pretend to be I won't pretend to have been all that productive during the pandemic, but I think, I kind of kicked myself about that, but it's at the end of the day, it's like, this sucks, and it's been really hard, and I'm really looking forward, because the karmic weight of the whole thing is a lot. So it is. We'll all get out of this and feel a little more creatively.
Yeah, well, that is actually, it's something very real that Aidan's saying. I think a lot of people are struggling with just like creativity right now. I mean, just about coming up with new stories when we're not, you know, life or art imitates life, but when life isn't being led, what is art there to imitate? It's tough. And just like you and I were talking, Andre, about, you know, COVID material, I think there are certain people who are making that. And there are a lot of people who don't want to make that. They don't want to be constricted by these kinds of, parameters that, So it's tough to come up with some current, nice, you know, new ideas, especially when you can't sit in a room with a bunch of actors and do readings or you know, things like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's nice in a way that all of these film talks, you know, before we start them and everyone tunes in, you know, myself and the filmmakers have a couple minutes, we chat before, and our conversation, we were talking about, you know, kind of what all the other filmmakers have been saying, where, you know, we just are like, how are you? It's kind of hard right now, but you're okay, right? And so in these talks, as we're cheering and talking about film and excited, you know, like, part of my experience doing that is that I have been connecting with the filmmakers, and we have been personally talking about this. And I think that there's a real beauty in just allowing us all to be open about that. Like, this has been a rough year, and I don't think anyone should be beating themselves up about how they performed during the pandemic, because I think creatively, at least, and emotionally, we're probably going to be processing this after, you know, we're living it now. We're in the action right now. And even though it's stagnant and we're at home and it's not, you know, it kind of looks like this weird thing, we're currently living through it. And I do think, and I fully believe that there's going to be some amazing art coming in the next couple years once the processing of all of this begins.
I agree.
And, you know, the community that we maintained during this pandemic and those bonds that we maintained during a time when it was really difficult to do so are going to be that much more beneficial and, you know, amazing, and are really going to help support that creativity. And that's just my vision of what I think is coming. And I feel that I'm right about that. So
absolutely, I think you are.
Yeah,
cool.
I hope that there's a sort of a consciousness that we do gain some sort of social greater consciousness out of this.
Well, I think we've had many sort of enlightenments throughout this period of time, you know, even thinking back to, I mean, not to get too into it, but like the George Floyd murder in May. I mean, like that, and the subsequent political sort of realizations and the continuing farce that is this, you know, that administration. I think we've continued to look at these things, and if anything, we're able to get almost a little distance from it, and be able to tell these stories at some point, and really, well, and not even just these stories, but just being able to think differently, think more inclusively, think more globally, right?
Yeah.
I hope so, at least.
I think so. We've all gone through this together in our own individual ways. It's affected everyone differently, of course, but there is a collective event. And I mean, I think that it's difficult in the moment, but history, in my mind, my view is that history tells us that there is always some beauty at the end of it. And the difficult time is we just don't know when the end comes, but it will come, and there will be great things afterwards.
We're stuck in a hole.
We are. We're stuck in the hole.
Somebody eventually, we're gonna get lunch.
Yes,
we're gonna break for lunch at some point.
Right.
Oh, that was such a perfect tie-in. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was a great conversation, and we'll be back for another installment of SBIFF Film Talk next week. It's going to be on Tuesday. You guys have a great night. Take care, and we'll see you later.
Thanks so much, Audrey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.